All right. And so next up we have
What's good, Long Island? Sorry, I always love to do that.
So Nadia is running for county legislature in Nassau, and I'm not going to do a huge introduction. I'm going to let her do it. I have spoken with her previously with the WFP interviews. I'm glad to have her on and hear from her today. So Nadia, if you want to step up, let us know, where exactly you're running, why you're running, and what you hope to achieve here in Nassau County.
Right, thank you. It's so good. Actually, I'm very happy to see so many people that I do know already for a number of years. So thank you all. Hi, Randy. How are you? Thank you all for having me. I'm really pleased to be here. A little uncomfortable. I chose the wrong room to sit in, so my exterior porch. So the fans are blowing. Very humid. Anyway, so like Joe said, I'm running for Nassau County Legislator for District 8. District 8 is Franklin Square. I try to remember it. Franklin Square, Stewart Manor, Floral Park, West Hempstead, a little bit of Elmont, a little bit of New Hyde Park, Belrose and Belrose Terrace. I think I got it. And I live in Floral Park with my husband. We've been married. We're coming up on 21 years. We have 2 children. My son just graduated yesterday from Floral Park Memorial. Yay. And I have a soon to be junior in high school as well. And I've lived in Floral Park for, I think, 19, 20 years now. And from the beginning, I've been active in the community. It's a great community to be in. And I started to get active because obviously on the very local level, you can have a significant impact. It's immediate, it's a feedback that you get right away. And I was hooked. So I moved up through the years. I was on committees, served on committees in the village. And then I started to see things I wasn't comfortable with in the village, the way things were being run. I felt that things were with a lot of cronyism going on, a lot of nepotism going on. And I started to call it out. And that was not very well received by some. But that told me then that I was on the right track. And I started to get involved. I became civic president. I was a civic president for 6 years. And during that time, I advocated for green space in our village. When a developer was coming in the building, he wanted 9 houses on this property. Many residents were upset and felt that we were being crammed in. And I helped negotiate a plot of land to be developed. And I have to say the village did a beautiful job developing it. So now we have a little pocket park right next to or across from this development. So it makes it more user-friendly, if you will. Also during that time, the group that I was involved with got funding for automatic doors at our recreation center, which was important for the disabled community, or even, again, anybody with strollers or a temporary impairment. You know, doors are heavy. If you could push a button, makes life a whole heck of a lot easier. A civic president. So in our village, the village is divided up into 4 sections in the village. And each section can have its own unique challenges. So the section of Floral Park that's nearer to Belmont might be impacted by what's going on at the Belmont Arena. The north side of our village can be impacted more by commercial. So it's divided into 4. So I was president of our section of the village. And our residents would gather on a monthly basis and bring issues forth to our village board about particular issues for our section of the village. And that is by election, very, very local election. And I served as 6 years there. But so through the years, I was working through all of this. And I actually gave up my seat as civic president to run for trustee in the village. It was the first contested election in 10 years. I couldn't get a slate together because everyone literally was afraid to run for ramifications. Stupid me, I have no fear. I don't know why. But in the end, actually, I keep telling everyone I survived. All is good. I did not win, but I did garner 45% of the vote. So to me, that was a win. And it certainly made people aware of what's going on. And I took that as a victory. I stepped back for a little bit just to regroup, and recently started to become active again. Some of you may have seen on News 12 and in Newsday, as part of the ribbon cutting ceremony at the Floral Park train station for 3 new elevators. About 5 years ago, when Governor Cuomo proposed the third track project, he was starting the project just east of our train station. Our train station is over 100 years old, and has been inaccessible to virtually everybody who might have some sort of impairment, or again, strollers, children, families, because it has 40 steps up to the platform. And I found it unacceptable that $3 billion was being put into this massive project, but Floral Park was not even going to be made accessible. So I lobbied and pursued the governor's office. I pursued, I've spoken with our local elected leaders. I spoke at all the public hearings, wrote letters, and then ultimately was successful in getting 3 elevators into the plans. And that was just opened up about a month ago. So that was just such a happy day to know that once again, being active at the local level can get you results, and you get feedback and you do good. And that made, just to see, someone had posted a video of them taking the elevator for the first time, and it just made me smile, because he has never done it. We always have to go to either Garden City or New Hyde Park for an accessible station. I also fought the development of the Belmont Arena, just for those plans. I think development needed to happen. I would have preferred more progressive development. I would have preferred maybe a university having a satellite campus, but we got the arena, and so we will do the best that we can with that and look out for our residents. And I decided to run for legislator because, once again, I've been getting all this positive feedback through the years, and I realized that our district outside of Floral Park, there's more than Floral Park, outside of Floral Park, Franklin Square, New Hyde Park, West Hempstead, have been underrepresented in the district, in the legislature. The current elected official has done next to nothing. Through the pandemic, he was nowhere to be seen. During the pandemic, as a private citizen, I raised $26,000 for local restaurants to be paid by our funds to then provide free meals to frontline workers and food insecure families. I helped open up the Nassau County chapter of Frontline Foods, which is part of World Central Kitchen. During the pandemic, our strip of businesses, local businesses, at their lowest point, economically, then had a devastating fire. 11 businesses were knocked out completely. I raised $16,000 for them, $23,000 to then be dispersed through the chamber. Where was our legislator? Nowhere to be seen. So I decided to run because if I could do this as a private citizen, imagine what I could do with more resources available as a legislator. And that's why I'm running, because I'm determined to have the proper representation in our district, make sure everyone gets the services that they need, make sure that everyone is aware of the services that are available and have access to them, help them through it. I want to help local businesses recover, and I want them to prosper. And of course, the elephant in the room is transportation. I want to ensure that our transportation is enhanced for the disabled and also expand. And that's why I'm here.
Great.
Does anybody
Thank you.
have questions? Oh, 7 new messages.
Nadia,
I
thank you.
have a question. I have a question.
Oh, sorry.
Did they
Susan.
ever start rebuilding any of those businesses that were demolished by the fire?
Yes, there actually have been plans submitted. They're building back the strip. It's going to be updated. Needless to say, that I think was also, I want to say about 40 years old or so, might have even been more. So it was time for it to be updated. And in fact, I just had a conversation with the superintendent of buildings, because 2 of those businesses were actually, I want to say inaccessible, but that's not a good word. Inconvenient for, again, anybody with an impairment to access the business. So, and she was not aware of it. So I was glad. So she and I had a conversation, and now she's going to make sure that the businesses are more accessible to everybody. You know, what I'm talking about is like there's a step in, but they put this god awful short ramp, you know, that has your walker or your wheelchair going at this incline in a short span. So she now has become aware of some improvements that definitely, you know, are attainable. But they are building back, Susan.
Okay.
Nadia, I have a question to follow up
Yes,
with,
Joe.
about what you've been talking about and making it more accessible. Do you think Nassau County overall could do better with making, you know, doing exactly what you said? There are businesses that may not be accessible and they don't even know it. So, you know, does this sound like, is this more of a local, like, town issue, or do you think the county can, you know, create a policy to enforce that, you know, that there is a proper, you know, angle, etc. I know, you know, my grandfather, he, you know, he had issues later on in life with accessibility, and, you know, and I know a ramp, if it's too steep, it's, you know, you're basically going down a slide. You're not really going up.
And sometimes that people will say, well, but there's a ramp. The argument, excuse me, their argument will be, well, I did put in a ramp. It's like, yeah, but really, you know, aesthetically, it might not even be lovely. But 2, pragmatically, you know, so you could put a dog in a cat suit and you can't call that a cat. It's the same thing. So Joe, yes, I think it's a matter of educating. So it's a matter of educating at the Nassau County level, at the village level, at the municipal level. I think the Office of the Physically Challenged probably could do more on that end. I'm not sure what systems are in place right now. That's something I definitely would look into. But that being said, just this conversation with the superintendent of buildings to make her aware changed everything. Like, she's like, oh my God, I didn't even realize. So it's the simple things. But for me, I think Nassau County can, and if I'm elected, when I'm elected, I think that these issues do need to be highlighted. There's been absolutely no representation for the disabled. In fact, when I win in November, I would be the first disabled legislator. And in fact, I am actually the first disabled person to run for the legislature. So I think it's time that proper representation be made. And any accommodations benefit everybody. Instead of calling it ADA compliance, I rather just call it universal design. Because even these elevators at the train station, even if you're physically without any issues, if you've had a rough day, or it's a day like today, do you want to schlep or go down 40 steps of stairs? No, you'd rather just take the elevator and zip right down. So it benefits everybody. And that's the angle that I'm coming from. You know, these improvements, these enhancements benefit everybody, but you still need to look through it through the lens of someone who is disabled. So that is definitely something that I'm going to be pursuing.
Great.
Did that answer your question?
Does. Appreciate it. Any other questions? Because we're going to start to move on to our next candidate. I just want to open it up to the floor.
I know Marco had a question. I know Marco's not here, but Marco's attending Pride. But I know Marco had a question for Nadia.
Oh,
Nancy's hand is up. Okay, Nancy can ask her question, and then I'll ask Marco's question.
For me, it's about just getting to the point. Nadia, thank you, especially about the transportation issue. What is your opinion? Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg has talked about doing high-speed rail. What is your opinion on that?
I'm going to be honest. I'm not very well versed on what he's put forth. So, I'm dealing right now with the LIRR and getting that back up, getting that into the 21st century.
Yeah. I guess I'm wondering if the LIRR could become an example of it, and I'm interested in the feasibility of that and green energy jobs and things like that.
Right. So in terms of green energy, to me, there's just no looking back. You just have to go forward. You cannot stay the way we are.
Mm-hmm.
Things change.
Yeah.
And people need to accept it because that is life. What we are today was not what we were yesterday.
Right.
And so we need to just keep looking forward. Any green energy plans, they're only for improvement. They're not a detriment. And it provides new avenues for employment, for careers, for industries. And the reality, we need to save our planet. I mean, I hate to sound so cliche, but it's no joke.
Yeah, no kidding. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, so this question is from Marco. Marco read your questionnaire, and was one of the questions was, would you accept money from police unions? And your response was maybe. Could you just elaborate your position on and just how and your plan to reform the Nassau Police?
Right. So I'm thrilled that the body cams are being put into place. I think there does need to be accountability. I don't know if any of you also know that when I was running for trustee, there was one of the issues that I was bringing forth was accountability of our own police commissioner. Because he was being named an unindicted co-conspirator in federal proceedings. Our village was doing nothing about it. And there's that cloak of protection. There is, oh, we've got it. There's nothing to worry about. And that troubled me a lot. I believe that the reforms put forth are good. I think we can do better. Again, it's change. We need change. We need to have accountability. So I don't know. It depends what. It's not a blanket, yes, I would take it. It depends what the motives of the police unions are when giving me the monies. There's a lot of things in play. Does that answer it?
Yeah. Thank you, Nadia.
I just want to follow up. Personally, I think PBA money is dirty money.
Right.
Yeah.
So, they came out for Trump. They fully supported him.
Right.
They were going to, they got involved in school board elections. So as a previous candidate, I personally would, you have your answer, I have my answer.
No. Right.
So it's like, I don't see their money as money that I would want to, because by taking the money, from my perspective, it's well, I agree with them.
But aren't there more than one types of police union, or am I mistaken?
There's the detectives association, there's etc. So with that, it comes down to, well, is it acceptable to take any type of police money, you know, and that in and of itself, if they're connected with, they're all connected, they're all in that system. So it's saying like, well, I take big real estate money, you know, well, I take money from my friend who's a realtor, you know, they give me $50, you know, or am I going to take from, you know, Reb New York, where they're, you know, they're huge landlords, and, you know, we're going to have an eviction crisis that's going to come up in the next few years or even sooner. So, you know, that's why we asked that question, because
No, and I appreciate it. So, but the other thing is also too, I really do not compromise my stance in any way, ever, have I? Even when I was going up against the police commissioner, it got very ugly here in the village, and I refused to back down. So so first of all, so I don't even think the PBA is going to offer me anything anyway. But that being said, I really am one of principle, and I know what I want to do for the district, and I know what I want to do for Nassau County. And there's no wavering on that at all. You know, but nobody's going to offer me money. They're not, you know. PBA, I did not make friends when I was coming after the commissioner.
I guess just to really, I don't know if there's another question. Just I'll follow up with this. Speaking of like endorsements,
Yes.
so other than like the Nassau Dems, the WFP, have there been any other endorsements that you've gotten from other groups, etc.? I mean, I know you're seeking our endorsement, but you know, is there any other unions or any you know,
Right. I've been doing a number of interviews. Nothing has come out yet for any of the endorsements. I have the Long Island Conservation later this week, an interview with them. Local 338. Joe, I think you're part of that, right?
I've looked for them. They're pretty good.
Right. Long Island Fed, I'm waiting to hear on as well. So I'm definitely, everything I think is just, I think everyone was waiting for primaries to end. And so, well, hopefully those announcements will come, but those are the endorsements I'm seeking.
Okay, cool. All right, great to know. Any closing remarks before we move on?
No, I truly, I really do value your support. And I just want you to know, my campaign is coming from my heart, because I just really believe that I can have an impact and be the change that's needed in our district, District 8. And we need to be more proactive instead of reactive. And I think that our community has been underserved. So I thank you all for your time.
Thanks for joining us today. I really appreciate it. Thanks for all your work that you've done. And it's a lot. So, you know.
Thank you so much, Nadia.
And I just get energized by it. I really do. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So we're running a little behind, which is kind of normal for us. So we have Raja, who's running also in Nassau County Legislature. So Raja, if you want to introduce yourself, what you're what you're running for specifically, where you're running, etc., and we'll go from there.
All right. Hi guys, how are you? Sorry for being late. Thank you for the opportunity to speak and to engage with all of you. I'm basically running for LD 17, and this is a district that has seen huge changes over the past 15 years, and that's how long I've been living here. And with these changes, I've noticed that, you know, the legislator that's in office now hasn't really acknowledged that or appreciated the change or done anything to help the changes that were happening in the neighborhood or within the district. And And, I got kind of frustrated with that because everyone is moving in from the city, new families, young adults, professionals, even senior citizens moving in. They kind of feel like they're being ignored and underrepresented with the current official that's in office. And then, rather than waiting for an opportunity for the party or anyone to say, hey, we think you're a good fit, or we see the changes that's happening with the demographics. We want someone from the community to represent you guys and have a seat at the table, because I know that opportunity may never come. So instead of waiting, I just figured, let me just go for it and make the change happen myself. And the way I did it is I went for the endorsements and the vetting process myself. That way, no one can say, hey, I'm the one that put you on. I'm the one that got you through. You only got the endorsement because of me. I don't owe anyone any favors. I did it myself. And now when I'm in office, I don't have to do favors for people because that's what people always expect, right? So I did it myself, and I did it generally because I really want to help the people that live here. I think people are largely underrepresented, and it's not fair. It's not equitable because if you look at the legislature, right, there's very little minority representation, and that really needs to change. And this district is one of the districts that has a growing change in that demographic of minorities coming in. So I think we really need it. I think we need to go younger as well. Someone that's more forward thinking and progressive, because my incumbent who's there currently, she's been there forever. She doesn't do anything. She's ineffective, and that just doesn't work. It doesn't help myself. I'm an attorney. I'm a small business owner that's in the district as well. So, I don't necessarily need the help myself, but I have clients that do. And when they go ask for help from the legislator, they don't even get a response back to an email. And then they come asking me like, hey, what can you do for me? Can you help me out? And I don't really have an answer because whatever answer they're going to get is the same answer I'm going to get. And that just shows a huge lack of trust and a huge connection and transparency that government should have, especially on the local level, right? Because that's why you're in local politics, to actually be on the ground and be involved with the community and being able to help people all the time, because you're the first contact that these people have with government officials. So you're the first person they go to, and I want to be able to help people. That's why I'm running. I think the change needs to happen. I think the impact needs to happen. And once it happens, I think it sets the foundation of going forward for the rest of Long Island to see that impact. And then I think slowly it's going to follow suit, and we'll get more and more progressive and more younger, open-minded, willing to make changes and take risks, because that's what we need in Nassau County.
Thanks. All right, and you're running against Rose Walker, right?
That's correct. Yep.
Yeah, Rose has been around forever, and she just shows up for photo ops.
Yeah, and that's the problem. I mean, and I think I talked to you the other day. Like she comes up for photo ops to like a lot of these cultural events. So I'm Indian, South Asian. She comes to these events from within the South Asian community, which I think the biggest South Asian community is in District 17. In Hicksville and Bethpage and Plain Edge. That's where most of us live. But she'll come say a couple of words, but like it's annoying because when you think about it, you say, well, what have you actually done for us, for the community, to help us move forward or get better or have more access? And really the answer is nothing. And that doesn't just apply to South Asians. It literally applies to everybody else in the district, because she hasn't passed any legislation, right, at all. She's been there for 12 years, super ineffective, never proposed legislation. She never will. She's never going to pass legislation. Her family's tied to the corruption with the Mangano administration. And it just kind of blows my mind how she's still there. And everyone knows that her family was tied to the Mangano corruption, and everyone knows that, but she's still there. And just like, I don't get it. Like, why is she still there? Because she does nothing.
Yeah. So what do you think is one of the biggest policy changes that we need to affect in Nassau County to make this a more equitable county?
As far as equitable, I mean, firstly, I would just look at, it just comes to representation. That's not really a policy change, but representation in general. I think each district should have some sort of representation that reflects the community that people are living in, right? If District 17 has, although we're the minorities of South Asian, we do exist, and this is essentially where we're growing in numbers. There should be some sort of representation in local government to reflect that. Same thing with, the Latino community in, like, let's say Westbury, right? The same thing should exist there. And you can go from district to district and kind of say, all right, every district should have some sort of representation that's kind of like on the ground and they know what's going on. Because that's kind of where you can start to get information and engage with people. And then you can make policy that say, hey, what do you guys actually need? How can we make your lives better? Right? I think that's where it starts. As far as policy goes, I mean, the biggest thing I can think of, I do a lot of real estate work as an attorney. So I work with a lot of builders and, people that flip homes. And I guess the biggest issue is with all these big projects that we're doing that are controlled by the towns. And they always give these projects to the biggest bidders, not necessarily to people that live here who really need jobs, especially post-COVID, right? Everybody wants to get back to work. This really applies to like labor unions, right? These guys that want fair wages, they want good jobs, they want apprenticeships for the younger generation. But that doesn't happen because it goes to outside contractors, it goes to outside developers. And I think we can easily make legislation that requires, if not all, but at least a certain number of jobs must go to, local workers and local unions to protect the interest of the unions, because that's very important. Because we don't protect them now, I mean, what's stopping them from staying in Long Island and working here? Nothing. They're going to say, if you're not giving me the opportunity, why do I have to be faithful to you with whatever taxes and expenses I pay? It doesn't come back to me. You're not reinvesting into my quality of life. So why should I continue to stay here? So I think we really need to focus on protecting those jobs and those unions. And there's definitely a way we can make a law that requires a minimum amount of jobs or security that would protect those union workers.
All right. Thank you, Raja. Thank you so much. Again, Marco's question, I guess, applies to you as well, because like Nadia, you also answered maybe to the question, would you accept money from police unions? Could you just please elaborate your position on that, and how would you reform Nassau's police?
I would have the same answer as Nadia, right? Maybe, because working in the South Asian community, because we are the minority in the district, we do have a very specific organization, Indian Americans for Change. And what this organization does, I'm the legal counsel for them. What we do is we raise funds every year to donate to the family members of officers and firefighters that died on the job. And we donate to their families. So we do have a good relationship with the firefighters and the police department, both in Nassau and Suffolk, as well as NYPD. I would say maybe because I know there's more South Asian and Sikh Punjabi police officers coming up into the police force. And I know that them being a minority, I know I can possibly affect some change in growing the number of minorities in the police force, because I think we do really need it. So it's in that situation, I can maybe say, see myself saying yes, because it's a very specific group that I can identify with, that I know there's a lack of in the police department. And I would want to help them, or just generally help any minority group increase the diversity in the police force. And that's really the only way I could think it could maybe happen. Otherwise, I don't really have a one-on-one relationship with like Ryder or anyone in Detectives Union or any of like that, right? So it's just that personal relationship doesn't exist. If they come to me through, someone that I know, I would like what Nadia said, right? I don't owe them anything. So I would straight up say, hey, like, what do you guys really want? Why are you coming to me to offer me donations? What is it that you want, right? Because it's never, we really want to support you. Like, what do you actually want? What's the agenda? What do you guys want? Because I know that's always there. As far as police reform, I think the People's Plan was great, right? I think that's the direction we need to go into. I think we did a good job as far as much as we could do with the current legislator that's in office. Mind you, it's majority Republican. So a real forward-thinking change isn't going to happen because they control the legislator, and they're going to dictate.
Right now, it's 11. I'm sorry to cut you off, but right now it's 11 Republicans, 7 Democrats, and 1 Lafazan, who we're very upset about with his blue alert legislation. But yeah, right now it's very Republican and conservative heavy.
Right. So I mean, the police cams is a great step in the right direction. I mean, my personal belief is I don't see why we're paying cops to be good cops, right? Like it's weird. Why are we giving them a bonus to wear body cams? Like if you're a good cop, you should be a good cop. We shouldn't have to give you an incentive to be a good cop. But at least we're going in the right direction, right? That's the biggest thing. We can't go from 0 to 100. At least 0 to 10 is great. At least it shows that we are working and we are seeing progress. And I'll take a little progress and then no progress at all. And then that's why we need, people like myself, Nadia, Laura, Will, like we need to get in office because we see why it's needed to have this reform, and we can, little by little, make the reform happen in the police. And I think we're going in the right direction, but I definitely believe we can do more.
All right. Thanks,
Okay.
Roger.
Steve had a question.
Yeah,
Cicchini?
you know what? Yeah, Steve does have a question, but we're running late, and Steve, I'm not going to ignore your question. So, Roger, if you want to answer that in the chat, and if you're going to be around a little later, we will also bring this up to the other county ledge candidates. But Laura Burns is up, and she got caught off the last time she was here, so I hope she's still here. Yeah.
Yes.
So, if you're going to stick around, we'll open it up to the floor for more questions. But we need to move it on. So, but I'll read Steve's question quick for anyone.
Yeah, I see it. I see it in the chat.
All right, cool. All right, Laura, welcome back.
Thank you.
And this time you get a chance.
I'll try to be brief. I'll try to move it along quickly. So it's nice to see all of you guys. I see a lot of faces that I have been at various events and rallies and, in the trenches with, across the past few years. My name is Laura Burns. I'm running for county legislature in LD6, which is all of Lynbrook, all of Malvern, and about half of Valley Stream, a piece of Rockville Center, and then little pieces of Franklin Square and Woodmere and Hewlett, which, shows you how gerrymandered we all are. So I am running for legislature. I ran for this office 2 years ago. I ran my heart out. We ran a really strong campaign. We have more registered Democrats in the district than Republicans, and we still were not able to win because the Republican machine is very, very strong. They're really good at getting out the vote, and Republican voters come out and vote. But Democrats, just don't. And so our job really, all of us, not just for me, but for Nadia, for Raja, for Will, for everyone who's running against an incumbent, is we just have to get people out to vote because actually there are more of us than I think anybody thinks there are. And people are afraid to use their voices here in Nassau County. I think we've all been told over and over that this is a very conservative area resistant to change, and I don't think it's true. And I think that the existence of groups like this one prove that it's not true. And we just need to get out there and get the people educated as to why it's important to take over a majority in the county legislature so that we can actually get some stuff done. About me, I am a founding member of Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. I am not in any way, I was never a politician. I'm not a lawyer, I'm a writer. I write scary books for teenagers and I write for TV sometimes. I got involved because there were 26, children and educators shot at Sandy Hook Elementary School, and my kids were the same age. And I just said, well, that's incredibly wrong and we can't let it happen. And we can't keep going down this path of government inaction. And I've got to do something. And that's how I got into activism. I didn't know that it was activism. I didn't know, I think for probably 2 or 3 years afterwards, that I was considered an activist, because to me, it was just a bunch of people trying to do the right thing together in the same direction. And that's how we learned how to be activists. And I have seen since then, that was in 2013 we started. Since then, I've seen other activist groups pop up around Long Island, and there were some that were here beforehand. And I think every single time it's an amazing thing. You know, we can't all put 100% of our energy into each cause, but I'm working on gun violence prevention. Someone else will be working on climate change. Someone else will be working on, expanding access like Nadia does. So I think that it's great that we are all able to come together and have these sorts of conversations so that we all know what's going on, but we all know that we're kind of pulling in the same direction. And that's what we need on the county legislature as well. So we need more of us who are going to be pulling in the same direction on all of these different issues. And we need to be in the majority so we can get anything done. I'm just going to very quickly echo what I jumped on just in time to hear kind of the end of what Nadia was saying and what Raja was saying. And I think I'm probably going to be saying a lot of the same sorts of things. I think it's really important to understand that the man I'm running against, his name is Bill Gaylord. He is in his 3rd term now. He has not really done much of anything. It's what I'm hearing from Nadia, it's what I'm hearing from Raja. The Republican majority in the legislature just sort of, they vote in lockstep and they vote as they, as their party wants them to vote, and that's it. They're not bringing up new and different ideas to help the community. And they're not reaching out to diverse communities to try to represent different points of view that may have come into their communities in the past 10 or 15 or 20 years. They listen to Nassau County Republicans. And as far as I can tell, I think that they represent Nassau County Republicans, and that's it. And I intend to represent Nassau County Republicans, but also independents and Democrats and people of all
Progressives,
cultures and, and the actual people that live here in Nassau County across the board. I think we all deserve the representation. And I think that we are not getting it. So that's what I'm running for. I'm running because my district has been increasing in diversity for 20 years now, but the representation has stayed the same, and it's not indicative of what the community actually is. And I feel that a legislator who's there to speak for the people and make their lives better should be listening to all the people across the board. And so that's what I plan to do.
Great. Yeah. There is that tendency to just stay partisan, and Long Island is a diverse place. So even districts are kind of split 3 ways in many times, where it's Republican, Democrat, and unaffiliated. So yeah, people tend to ignore the unaffiliated.
There are a lot of unaffiliated, and I myself was one of them when I ran 2 years ago too. I think that you don't know where people are going to fall, and I think it's a mistake to sort of prejudge anyone based on what their party registration is, especially in Nassau County, where, for decades, we've all been told, well, if you want to get any kind of public job, you probably should be a registered Republican. So, people don't really vote locally the way their national party registration indicates. And so I do think it's important to listen to all voices, but I don't think that the people in office, while in office, are listening to all voices. And I think that's the problem.
They take marching orders from the top and go from there. Now, being you're an advocate for preventing gun violence, etc. What type of solutions do you think Nassau County needs that you would be fighting for?
Well, I really got involved in running for office because my group, along with a coalition of gun violence prevention groups, different activist groups, we decided in 2018 that we were not going to get any new better gun laws in New York State until we were able to get new representation in the state Senate. The Assembly was always pushing gun legislation and the Senate would let it die. And so we needed to change a lot of the senators. And as it happened that year, that was about getting, Democrats elected. So we were able to flip the state Senate, or help flip the state Senate with a lot of other activist groups. Our goal with Moms Demand Action was to elect people specifically who were going to agree to pass laws like red flag laws to take guns away from people who are showing signs of being a danger to themselves or to others. And one of the very first things they did, I mean, they were signed in, I guess, at the beginning of January, sworn in, and that by the end of January, we had 9 new gun laws, including a red flag law. And so, we have background check laws, we have safe storage laws, we are not able to, we have a law against arming teachers in schools here in New York. So because of the actions taken by the people that we helped get elected, New York has pretty much the best gun laws in the country. And that was something that was really a pleasant shock to me as someone who grew up maybe a little bit cynical about politics, the idea that, oh, nothing ever changes. But, here I actually worked for it for years with a bunch of other people. And eventually it happened and they passed all these laws. And I thought, well, that's how it's supposed to be. So apparently it's about getting people in there. But then more than that, it's about getting people in there and then holding them accountable for doing what they said they were going to do when they were campaigning. And that's the job of activists too. So we can't just get people elected, we have to kind of stay on them. And that doesn't mean haranguing them or being unpleasant or anything else. It just means staying on them and saying, you know what, are you working on this issue? We talked about this issue. Where are we on that? What can we do to help you move that issue down the road even more? So for me, just seeing that people really can make that kind of change in their government and in their laws was a big catalyst for running for office so that I could try to do that on other issues. Now, on the county level, as far as gun violence prevention, there was a safe gun storage law for years. I think it was 3 or 4 years. And this is a law basically saying if you have a child in the house, you need to have your firearm secured in a safe with the ammunition separately, or you need to have a gun lock, you need to have it secured so that a child cannot get their hands on a weapon and accidentally shoot themselves or someone else. This is a very basic common sense law that everyone of every political party would agree with, but the Republicans did not, they wouldn't advance it. They wouldn't even bring it to the floor for discussion, the Republican majority. So this is an example of the sort of thing that is happening in the legislature, that people who are bringing good new common sense laws for things like public safety, for things that aren't really or shouldn't be controversial, if it's not approved by the party line, the Republican majority is simply not going to put it on the schedule for discussion. And so that's what keeps happening. And I would like to prevent that from happening, both on the gun violence front, but also on other things, on the climate change issues, on small business issues, and most especially to me on equity issues.
All right, thank you so much, Laura. Again, Marco's question applies to you as well, because for the question of would you accept police money, you actually did not respond. We had a blank text. I don't know if that was a glitch or anything, but I just wanted to know, have you been offered money from the police unions?
No.
And just what was it?
No, I have not.
Okay, so just elaborate on your position on how would you reform the police?
Right. I'm going to say I think that my answer there is pretty much in line with Nadia and Raja's, is that I just don't think it's a yes or no. It's not an easy question to answer yes or no. I mean, my hope would be actually that the PBAs will be reformed along with the police, and that maybe 2 or 3 cycles down the line, we're talking about a completely different situation. So I don't feel comfortable just giving a blanket answer to that question. But I think in terms of reforming the police, I will say in my district, it's a kind of a complicated issue, not the reform part, but just kind of to give you the lay of the land. I've got 3 different villages within my district itself, each of which have their own police departments. So Rockville Center has village police, Lynbrook has village police, Malvern has village police. And so there are different layers of police departments, even within my one district. And people have different, opinions of their village police. And I do like, in some aspects, it's a community policing situation. And I'm a big fan of community policing. I think that when you have police officers who know the community and the people in the community, and vice versa, especially for the young people, I think that then what you're doing is you're avoiding the thing that leads to violence and anger and hatred, which is a feeling that the other is not human or is not equal in some way. I think that when you humanize both the police officers and the people that they're there to serve, and both sides see each other as human beings. And so instead of seeing, the kid on the corner, the police officer is seeing Billy, who really should be home by now, and that just changes the interaction. And so I think that that is so important. And that's the kind of thing that I hear from, I work with a lot of survivors of gun violence. That's, what the word that we use for people who have either themselves survived gun violence, but usually it applies to people who have lost family members to gun violence. And frequently in communities of color here on Long Island, they have lost either multiple friends and loved ones, but often multiple family members to gun violence. And so it's a very tragic thing, and gun violence disproportionately affects people in communities of color. And when I talk to these survivors groups, what they want is they want the police on the street knowing their kids. They want more like PAL programs. There was a PAL program, I think, was it in Roosevelt, that was recently restarted, and everybody is a big fan of that, because what it is it brings the kids in. It gives them something to do after school instead of hanging out on the streets or being at home. It brings them together with other kids in the community. It brings them together with the police officers who are coaching them. My kids do PAL track, for instance. They've got some basketball programs, some tracks. I don't know what the one, I think it was in Roosevelt, was recently restarted. But everyone in the community was very happy that I talked to about that. And so I think, I try to resist the idea that we need to separate more and that there needs to be a choice between keeping people safe and the police. I think that it's got to be a solution where we're bringing people together. And to me, the police reform that we have put forward, I'm going to say the same thing that Raja said and Nadia said. I think that the body cameras, it's a massive step forward. And I'm so happy that we're doing it however we're doing it, because I think that you got to move forward, and that's a step forward. Now, I'm also going to say that I don't know that it goes far enough. I don't know. I read the People's Plan, and I think that people were pushing for more. And I think that we, again, as activists, need to continue to push for more. So I'm going to say, I'm glad that we've gotten what we've gotten on police reform. And we just, as I said earlier, we're not done. As activists, it's our job to keep pushing and to keep people accountable. And so there was a door left open. This is the reform plan that we've put forward, but we can always improve upon it. And I think it's up to us here as activists to hold them to that. You said there's movement, there's room for movement going forward. And I think that we need to keep the conversation going. And it's our job to not let the reform conversation die. I think that we need to keep going in the direction we've started, and we need to be able to celebrate the direction we've started, which is a step in the right direction. And again, for me, what I'm always going to go back to is the community policing, because it's what I hear from the people who I work with in communities of color, and it's what I see even in some of the villages in my district, is that people really, they have pretty good opinions of their village police, even if they have no opinion at all of the Nassau County Police. So I do think that that is an important aspect of it that I focus on.
Okay.
She's got a question. She's a survivor of gun violence. So let her ask that question quick. I just want to put that out there, that the current plan put forth by Nassau County was deemed insufficient by the Attorney General, Tish James. So it is not a plan that is well formed, and most people don't know this. There's a corporation that tends to write policing police plans or police policy for police departments, and they
Backed
have
by the Koch brothers.
I think it's called Lexapol, and they have been found to be far right and white supremacists in their actions. So the members of them have supported Kyle Rittenhouse, gone out for him publicly. So that corporation that's involved with many of our police departments in New York State tend to write police policy. So I just put that out there to let you know that, when we let our police departments write their own policy, it may not be a good thing. But Kim, could you step up and ask your question?
Hi, Kim.
Hi. So, Laura, thanks for running again. I know it's a thankless task. My question applies to all candidates running for Nassau County legislature, but specifically to Laura, who, your number one issue that you're most well known for is gun violence prevention, but it's applicable certainly to all other candidates for Nassau County Ledge on the call. I wanted to know who on the call is in favor of the New York Health Act as well as Medicare for All. I know that a lot of local candidates will kind of weasel out of answering the question because they'll say, that's a state issue, that's a national issue, that's not applicable to what I'm running for. And first and foremost, I think, COVID kind of it's a brave new world post-COVID. Everything's applicable. But also prior to COVID, there were some news items coming out about Nassau University Medical Center and their budget, and if it was sustainable to keep their doors open. So really, this is an issue that is very applicable to all county legislature candidates. And as I mentioned in the chat, as Joe mentioned, I am what Moms Demand refers to as a survivor of gun violence. My father was murdered in a triple murder, suicide, domestic violence, home invasion. And I think often in the gun violence prevention space, especially with the major newsworthy mass shootings, the suicide and domestic violence piece often gets overlooked. And I, as a quote unquote survivor, my biggest request for anyone working on the issue is to pass the New York Health Act and Medicare for All, because that begins to destigmatize receiving mental health care, and also supports any individuals or any families, communities who may need that care after having been a victim of such tragedy. So that was a very long-winded who supports it, yes or no?
I personally support it. I don't think that I would say I would try to weasel out of it. I don't know what I can do on the county level, but anything I can do to expand access and equal access to healthcare is massively important to me. So anything I can do on the county level, I can. And as a private citizen, I certainly support it. I think that you hit on a hugely important aspect of all of this when you're talking about mental health. And for me, that kind of comes from both the recent pandemic experience and also from the gun violence prevention, experiences that I've had, where it's on the numbers of people killed by gun violence every year in America. I believe it's north of 60% of that number is suicides. And there are a lot of suicides also among our veteran community. A lot of the, as you said, Kim, the mass shootings that get attention in the national media are giant mass shootings, but by the definition of a mass shooting being, 4 people killed, most of those situations are in fact domestic violence and, smaller family kind of things like that. And so they don't get as much attention, but obviously they devastate communities just as much. And it's just as terrible. The gun violence that happens every day that we do not hear about accounts for far more of the fatalities from gun violence and the injuries from gun violence than mass shootings do. So you kind of have to look at that whole issue. And I think that the media likes to only look at one piece of it. But mental health, and especially knowing the warning signs of suicide, are a huge part of what we do. Also at Moms Demand Action, we have some public education campaigns around knowing the warning signs of, depression and teen suicide. So yes, the mental health aspect of it, from the gun violence perspective, from the COVID perspective, and honestly, even just from the sort of the world, when I look at kids, there have been too many suicides in my town in Rockville Center over the past couple of years, and it's a crisis. This is something that we are grappling with as a community, and the school district gets involved, and it's hard to know exactly who's whose program is the best program, but the point is that attention needs to be there and the money needs to be there and the public funding needs to be there for every, you got to throw every sort of possible solution at this. You've got to study it, you've got to treat it, you've got to catch it early, you've got to support people before they get to a crisis situation. And we just need all hands on deck for that. And I feel like, this sounds maybe a little bit Pollyanna-ish, but certainly in the gun violence prevention movement, we started by just talking a lot and saying, you know what, we should talk about this gun violence thing, because everyone is afraid to say, ooh, you can't go up against the NRA, you can't talk about guns, like that's not polite. Just having the conversation and making it okay for people to talk about and to come out and say, oh, this is how I feel. I think that mental health has a huge stigma still attached to it. And that part of what we can all do, and one thing that we certainly can do that Nadia and Raja and Will and I can do in the legislature, is have this conversation and put it in a public forum about the importance of mental health, about, that there should not be a stigma attached to it. There shouldn't be a shame attached to it, that if you need help, here are the resources that the county has. We need to be able to make sure that the county's resources for mental health, are funded. We need to be the ones kind of out there on the front line saying, we are here for you. And the county should be here for you. And just briefly, when you talk about Newmick, yeah, that hospital, its finances are very, very troubled, and we've got to find a way to get them under control. We've got to put people in charge there who are going to be able to fund the hospital, because it is Nassau County's only public hospital. That's our public hospital. It absolutely must exist. It must be funded. It must be able to run efficiently. It's our trauma center. It's our public hospital, and we need it. And anything that we can do to support it, we need to do. So that's what I'm going to do when I'm elected.
Many local municipalities have been passing resolutions in favor of Medicare for All and the New York Health Act. So when you and Raja and Nadia are in the ledge, hopefully you will do the same thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm just going to also kick in here regarding the medical center. I think it's also important that we expand the services for veterans so that it's more local for them. Another underserved population right now in Nassau County.
Thank you, Nadia.
So,
yeah, absolutely.
It's imperative.
Yeah.
So.
All right, thank you so much. The next candidate that we have is Alina Nix. Alina is running for town clerk in the town of Hempstead. I heard she's a rock star. I got a chance to hear her speak, and everybody spoke very highly about her. Raja was there as well. And so, Alina, take it away.
Hi, everybody. I do apologize for the noise. I've been running around kind of all day. So, but I just want to thank you guys for being on and allowing me to speak to you all. My name is Alina Nix. I am a resident of Uniondale, and I've been a resident for over 25 years now. In Uniondale, I'm currently a volunteer firefighter, as well as I sit on the Uniondale Public Library Board. I'm so sorry. And I have also founded an organization, nonprofit, that focuses on providing mental health services to those with mental health challenges. It is more of a peer-led organization, and hopefully we're looking to grow that. But, studies and research have shown that peer-led programs really are the most efficient, because you feel like there is a buddy system. So I am very excited to be running for town clerk. I do believe that, it is important to have transparency for our residents, have people in there who care about our residents. And, when we think about the town and we think about, just Washington, that is an area designated for services. And we really need to refocus ourselves on that and get representatives in there that focus on the service to our residents and ensuring that they are heard and that they have the services that they need, whether that is repairing streets, whether that is supplying them with information for where our budget goes to, making sure that when they come in, they're greeted with great customer service, whether, we do passport services, marriages. We are, the clerk's office is the keeper of records, and it also is the liaison between the public, the residents, and the board and supervisor. So a lot of those communications come through the clerk. The clerk is responsible for the minutes. So we really just need someone in there who cares, who is listening, and just someone who truly understands what community is. I believe it is a great position for advocacy, being that it is not a voting position. I believe that the clerk's office can really use their platform a lot more for advocacy and sitting with our residents to hear what is going on in their communities and what's going on in their towns, and collecting that information and bringing it back to the board so they can make sound decisions for all stakeholders involved.
Okay, so unlike unlike the other candidates for County Ledge, you actually wrote down yes for the question. Would you accept money from police unions? Again, could you just further elaborate your position or plan to reform the police of Nassau County?
Yes. So for me, what I really feel is important when it comes to our police department is we really need to redesign them. So I know a lot of people are calling for the resignation of Commissioner Ryder, but I think what he said was very important because I feel like it is an opportunity for us to push more for bias training, unconscious bias training, because as we know with Long Island, the town of Hempstead, our communities are very separated. And when you have that separation, then what you also have is uncertainty. So when you have police officers from towns where they have never interacted with people of color, and then they come and be police officers, they only have the reference of what TV has shown them, what is being constantly pushed. And that affects your bias without us even knowing, So we really need to start to educate our police departments. And of course, everyone's not gonna mold to the education, and those people really don't need to be police officers. But I think with more education, you can only, a lot of times people only go based off of what they're taught. If you're taught generations and generations of hate, if you're taught these stereotypical views, then that's truly what you believe, especially if you don't know a person, in the community that you're working in. So, we really need to focus on that.
Okay, does anybody else have any questions for Alina?
The town clerk, right? Hempstead or North Hempstead?
Hempstead.
With the town clerk positions, I always find it interesting about, and this comes to language accessibility. How much of the literature and et cetera is available in various languages. I mean, if we keep bringing it up, Long Island's a very diverse place. It's getting more diverse. We have, it used to be just English and Spanish, but now we have, you might need Urdu, you might need Korean, you might need Creole. Farsi, yeah. So, are any plans on expanding that? And I'll just follow up real quick with, a lot of people are unable to go to the 9 to 5 office hours that you'll find in a lot of clerks' offices. Any plans on making it more accessible time-wise or location-wise?
Absolutely. The clerk's office is a 24-hour position. And as we know, the town of Hempstead and our residents are working class residents. So we're getting out of the stage of 9 to 5. We need to make it accessible for everybody. And that's one of my push, because I honestly believe that the clerk's office and, just the town in general is designed to be intimidating so that you don't go there, so that you don't voice your opinion, so that, whatever your councilmatic leaders are voting on, they're not really including you. We want to hear from people. We want people to be able to come to meetings and stand at a meeting, but you can't do that if the meetings are at 10 a.m. You can't, they just put it, virtual because of COVID, but you can't do that if you're not available during those hours. And we really want to, not only my goals are to change the hours of the clerk's office to make it accessible for our residents, but also be able to start going into some of these communities and towns where, maybe they couldn't make the meetings, and start to really just provide information, disseminate that information properly. That is really what the clerk's office is there for. It's the dissemination of information and making sure that the proper record keeping is happening. And, you know, there are towns that are on the way in of the town of Hempstead, like some of our 5 towns, and then going more east where, you know, Hempstead is not convenient for them. So we got to get on the road and we have to service them. They are who voted for us. They are whose taxes, you know, pay for our salaries and pay for the services. So they deserve to have free service. They shouldn't be intimidated. It shouldn't be a difficult process when they come looking for the services that they need and resources.
Anyone else?
Could you talk more about the 311 program? We discussed it when we was at the Levittown Democrats. Could you just more explain the 311 program and how would you expand upon it?
Yeah, so I mean, it's very limited. People don't know that a lot of people don't know that it exists, and that, you know, in the city it's more used, but we don't really use it out here in the town or the island. So it is really the goal of our entire slate to be able to implement that, alert people that that is available, and really see what resources that people are consistently calling for, that may be able to provide them, you know, just with better resources so that it's made convenient for them. So that is definitely a plan to integrate that, upgrade it. You know, we really want to upgrade the entire clerk's office because we know how outdated, I mean, they have typewriters. So, you know, we really want to update the entire thing and, you know, make it accessible to everybody.
Yeah, that's absolutely insane that they're still using typewriters. Like, I'm a clerk laborer for the town of North Hempstead, and even I have a computer. So for them to be using typewriters in the town of Hempstead is just absolutely insane.
And, you know, they'll say that, oh, it's very costly, but the time that it's taking an individual to use these typewriters, it needs to be more efficient. You know, people shouldn't get frustrated when they go to the clerk's office because they're waiting on information. It shouldn't be weeks on weeks on weeks.
And
Yes.
Yeah. All right, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Are there any more questions?
Yeah,
Randy?
yeah. If you could expand the hours of the clerk's office, what would it be?
We're looking to have probably late days. So I know like Thursday is a very popular day that, you know, most people like it to have later, and maybe a Tuesday where there are the meetings. So, you know, it'll encourage people if they're coming for services to stay for a meeting. But, you know, we want to go to at least 8 p.m. because that gives people who get off at 5 o'clock to get a chance, have some dinner, and not feel like they're pressured to rush to the clerk's office.
That would be very good. I hope it happens.
As long as I get elected.
All right, thank you so much. The last candidate applying is Maria Schuring. Maria is running for town supervisor in Smithtown. Maria, take it away.
Hi, I'm sorry. I'm on my car right now. I apologize.
It's all good.
Taking my son to his music performance today. So my name is Maria Schuring. I'm running for town supervisor in Smithtown. I actually, the way I got into this was a little bit different. My son, Maddox Elbert, is very involved in the Smithtown Democrats and a number of political groups. And I had kind of overheard him. Okay. Yes. So I kind of overheard him talking with them, and you know, they were looking for candidates. And I said, hey, you know, I'd be happy to help out if I can. I would like to. So, you know, I gave them my resume and was able to speak with them, and they asked if I would be willing to run as town supervisor, and I was, you know, sure if that would be something that would help. Just a little bit about my background. I'm an attorney. I'm originally from the Bronx. I graduated from Fordham Law School, and I worked as an assistant district attorney in the Bronx DA's office. And then I worked for a few other firms and it came out to Long Island, and I've been an attorney now 23 years. I've had my own practice probably about 16. I do no fault. I did no fault for quite a while when I have 3 children. They're right now all teenagers. Actually, my daughter just graduated 2 days ago from Smithtown West High School. She'll be headed to Stony Brook. And I have another one in Smithtown West and another one in middle school at Maddox. But I'm sorry. I had them, we came out here when my middle son was just born in 2006. And I basically worked from home while raising my children. And as they got older, I wanted to become a little bit more involved. I also have a master's degree in philosophy. So I started teaching ethics at St. Joseph's College, which I've been teaching probably about 4 years now. So I do that. And then I'm a musician as well. So I teach at this music school I did pre-COVID, young kids like rock performance groups, things like that, and musicology school in Smithtown. So I was, involved with that as well. And I also volunteer since 2014. I volunteer as a attorney with Nassau Suffolk Law Services. I do divorce cases and family cases for them as well. So when Maddox's group approached me, they said, why would you be interested in doing this? I said, it's interesting as a parent and as a resident here. I feel like there's just, I said, honestly, I'm not happy with this town. There's a lot of families my age with kids, and I think the average age in Smithtown is 44. And so most of them have kids, and the schools are packed, with kids. Just that's the average Smithtown resident. And I said, honestly, if I want to go out to eat, or if I want to go shopping or do something else, I get out of Smithtown. I get out of Kings Park, all these areas, because it's a lot of empty storefronts. There's no culture here. There's a lot of empty storefronts. Storefronts were empty for years and years and years, until I found out they're getting tax subsidies for keeping them empty. The landlords are. So that is something where I was like, something needs to change here. It's either I can move to a better town, or I can do something to try to make it better here. Also, they were right off of Main Street. They're building this mega development all of a sudden, these big luxury apartments, which I don't know. I think the rent is like $3,000 for a 1-bedroom or something. So it's encouraging people who don't really have a stake in in the community. So I'm looking to stop that, to basically put an end to this mega development, to try to keep Smithtown, the motto is literally keep the town in Smithtown. That, we keep houses, affordable houses for families to put down roots, to keep the families here. We stop the tax subsidies for the landlords to keep their storefronts empty. We try to attract businesses and give them maybe some other kind of tax incentive to come to this community. There's also so many environmental concerns with the water quality, and I don't know how familiar you might be with the Gerardine, and also what they did in St. James. They literally have built a sewer main right under the main street that goes to nowhere because they never got approval for any kind of sewage treatment plant. And if right now, as it stood, it would be the water runoff would be going right into, which I think it is, from what I understand, it is right now going into the beaches and the sound. So I would definitely want to stop that, but they were not honest with the residents there. They did not tell the residents that in 10 years, your taxes are going to go up to pay for the sewer that's going nowhere. And people they're totally unaware of that. And that's literally what happened. So there's that. And then I know there's this issue with Flower Fields, they wanted to put in an entire, to put like a medical park, put a hotel, put all kinds of things on 25A, which is, the traffic is bad enough as it is right now for such smaller towns and like narrow streets. And I know that originally it was approved. They made some changes, and right now I think it's still being, the process is still being, the plan, that the master plan has been amended, and there've been environmental studies, and from what I understand, there's now attorneys involved. So I think that which I'm happy about. So I'm on that side. I'm trying to stop a lot of this, this mega developments, this environmental damage to the community, the higher taxes, yeah, I mean, it's not, I don't know how, I'm sure you're familiar with what's been going on in Smithtown with the Board of Education, which is very, which has been going on from, in quite a few of the towns. But I know that's been an issue, and I haven't, as far as like PBA, I haven't talked with them. I haven't been approached by them. There's been nothing so far as the PBA or the police, although I did tell some of the people in Smithtown I would like to sit down and talk with them, because I am not like, I would actually like to sit down and just say, look, I just want to, I want to understand that, that I'm not against, I'm not anti-police, but at the same time, I want there to be a better understanding in working with this community. There has to be something better. It can't just be us versus them, or police versus, oh, you're either or. And I want to make sure that that's, even though I have no control over the police in Smithtown, it's not a town supervisor position. They're just county police. It's still something I feel that's important, because it's our community is so bifurcated right now, and it would be whatever we can do to try to bring that community together in some sort of, to go into any more, unless anyone has any other questions about anything.
I don't see any questions. Thank you so much, Maria, for coming. Thank you so much to all of the candidates for applying.
Matt, I have a quick question.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
No,
Kim.
I didn't put it in the chat, but if there's no questions on the floor, I'd love to, Maria
Go ahead.
had discussed that landlords essentially having a tax incentive in keeping their storefronts empty. And my question, I suppose, is different than pilot deals, payment in lieu of taxes. And I imagine that there are landlords and developers that are receiving both, essentially, like that we're able to pay a lump sum rather than paying taxes, and then additionally may be able to write off the fact that their storefronts remain empty.
I'm sorry, I kind of like, it was breaking up a little bit, but I'm just trying to, I don't know like the extent of that at this point, because it was not something initially, what I told the Smithtown Democrats when I was meeting with them, I said, look, I, just as a citizen of Smithtown, because I told them, I'm like, look, I'm not a career politician. I'm a lawyer, I'm a professor, like I'm not a politician, but as a resident of this town, I think I represent like a lot of people who feel that this is unaccessible, that there's just way too many empty storefronts and nobody's doing anything and nobody's going in. Why is that happening? So, I mean, that would definitely be something I would further look into, and how we can kind of reverse that in some way, or some sort of incentives to get those businesses occupied and have businesses that would be beneficial to the community.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I don't know, like, yes, I know that is as far as the very specifics of it, I am not like, it's not something that we had looked into initially, because it was really, we were running on, there were other, the environmental issue, Geraldine, those were like the overdevelopment, and those were things that were pressing. And I know the Mike Sirodakis was actually held a press conference right on Main Street in Smithtown not too long ago, about the development of these luxury apartments that seem to be going up in most of the towns, at least in Suffolk. And they're completely out of, I mean, the rent for a 1-bedroom is more than a mortgage for a house. I mean, I don't think that is the kind of community that we want in a lot of these areas, you know, or at least I know in Smithtown, they're very protective of the community that they've built, and rightfully so. So, yeah, I mean, as I have more information, clearly, I would, you know,
I thank you for running, and I thank you for your interest in fighting the overdevelopment. And obviously you have an uphill battle there in Smithtown, but I think, and I'm speaking to you from Nassau, I think this is really an island-wide issue in terms of public education regarding the developers, the tax breaks they get, and how it really changes the character and culture of our communities. Like you said, when they're encouraging people that don't have stakes in the community, and they're pricing out anyone who has been a part of the community for decades. And I think it's part of like a larger, you know, perhaps your campaign, regardless of the outcome, will be part of a larger public education effort island-wide.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to know exactly what goes on in all the other communities, you know, when I'm feel like so invested in this one right now. I try to you know, remain as educated as I can, but it's like, it feels like things are constantly developing with the way, you know, it's just a lot of issues these days. And I think that's what I was concerned about too, is like with the whole, you know, PBA issue. I'm like, why are they getting involved in this? Like, it's just like, why and I remember talking to someone who was in the Board of Ed who just left. She's like, they just make stuff up. They just, you know, she's like, I had nothing to do with this. I'm like, I know. I said, that's kind of my concern too, is that, and I told these guys early on, I said, look, they're going to make up things. I was like, they're going to, you know, say things that are not true. And I said, so, you know, at least if I can be upfront, you know, I mean, I think a lot of this is 23 years as a litigator. You know, just knowing that sometimes you have to go to opposing counsel and discuss it with them and say, look, you know, I get it. You're from this is your perspective. This is my perspective. But, you know, we need to, like, I'm going to still work for my constituents. I'm still going to, you know, fight for what I believe in. And I just want to, you know, if we can try to discuss things and work them out instead of name calling, it's going to be more productive for this community and for both of us. So I don't know. I think that might be a good approach. I mean, already as it is, like, I've already, you know, talked with the town supervisor that's there now and all of his, you know, everybody that works for the town. And I'm, you know, I mean, I'm not going on their side, but I think that there's a way to work together, but still accomplish our goals somehow, you know, in a peaceful way, instead of just the hostility that I've seen lately, which is very disturbing.
What?
All right, thank you, Maria.
Thank you.
We've already passed 2 o'clock, so thank you for everybody for coming through, for staying on for the extra, for the overtime. Joe, you want to take it away since you're the chair for the day?
Well, yeah, okay, I'll just say thank you too. I mean,
thank you.
Yeah, this is, we appreciate that. We'll be reviewing everyone's questionnaire and then looking to put it forward to membership to vote on. So
A good meeting, Joe.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Always
much.
always a great experience when we all have these discussions, and glad to see everyone.
Same here, Nancy.
Thank you to Raja and Maria for running, and all of the other candidates that were on the call.
Good to talk to you, Joe.
Same here.
Thank you, guys.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Good to see you guys.
Take
Happy
care.
Pride. Today's Pride, everybody. Happy Pride.
Happy queer liberation.
Happy Pride.
Okay, bye-bye.
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 Take care.